We are back, and in front of me today I have my Sega Master System Model 2. The Master System 2 is not a system that you see all too often here in the US. In fact, up until recently, I didn't even know that the system was released here at all. This system was primarily targeted towards Europe and South America. I came to find out that almost half of all Master Systems sold were sold in Brazil. Now, this guy right here, I brought back with me last year from the UK. My goals for it were to bring it back and do a bunch of mods on it. Out of the box, the system is inferior and less capable than the Model 1 in almost every way, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, I got this system for 20 pounds with a controller and power adapter, and I think shipping was an extra 5 pounds. So all in, I have about $30 into the system, which is a relatively low investment. I am at least very happy to get a controller out of this bundle. Neither of the two Model 1s that I own came with the original controller, so I am happy to finally own one of these. Now, the console itself, it looks all right. I mean, these systems are pretty durable, but it definitely needs some work. There's a nasty chip on the cartridge door, and the cartridge door is actually quite difficult to open. I can kind of force it open, but I think it just needs a little bit of cleaning or lubrication. Once we give this guy a good cleaning, I'm sure it's going to glide open and closed much more seamlessly. What's perhaps the most concerning thing about the system is the power supply that it was bundled with. So if we take a closer look, we can see that the input voltage is 230 volts AC, and the output voltage is 9 volts AC rather than DC. This system certainly does not run on 9 volts AC, and I'm hoping that hasn't done too much damage to the system. We'll find out once we open it up and take a look inside. But if we take a look at the OEM power supply that came with my North American Master System, we can see that the output is 9 volts and it's center negative. This wouldn't be the first time that I pick up a system that's been bundled with the wrong power supply. In fact, that's how I came to own the Atari Jaguar and the TurboGrafx 16, both of which run on center negative like the Master Systems Model 1 and 2. I often find that these systems are sold as not working and bundled with the wrong power supply. My goal for today is to get the system working, if it's not already, and start the modding journey. There are so many things you can do to mod the system, and hopefully we'll get a chance to start that today. Sega really nerfed the system to get it to a certain price point, and they removed a lot of the features that were included in the Model 1 in order to cut costs. One of the most obvious, right, when you look at the system, there's no card slot on the Master System 2, which means the system can't play card-based games, and you can't use card-based accessories like the 3D glasses. The Model 2 can only do video out via RF. It can't even do composite video. And the Model 1, it's got RF, and it's got an AV multi-out here that can do both composite video and native RGB. So once we get this console working, the first thing we really want to do is restore its capabilities to output both composite video and native RGB. All right, guys, it is time to test the system and figure out what we're dealing with. Even if I were to plug this into my TV now, it's not really going to tell me whether it's working or not. For one, there's no power indicator on the system, so I'm not even going to know if it's powering on. And in terms of the video signal, RF is kind of worthless. And what's even more worthless to me here in the US is PAL RF. My NTSC TV is not going to do anything with a PAL RF signal. I just won't get an image on the screen, even if this was a perfectly working console. So let's go ahead, open this guy up, and take a look inside. All 5 screws are out, and the top cover should just pop right off. Pretty dusty on the inside, but nothing egregious. Let's take the RF shield out. All right, let's see if it's ready to come out. Okay. Get that out of the way. All right, and the board is out. First impressions are actually quite good. A little bit of surface rust on the RF shield and the RF box right here, but the rest of the board actually looks really clean. Let's look at the back. And it's looking really good on the back as well. And if anyone's wondering, this is a factory jumper wire over here. It's not a DIY repair, anything like that. Any Master System Model 2 board you look at online will have that jumper wire. Here we have the Sony CXA1145 RGB encoder. This is a very popular chip. It's the same one that's used in the Sega Genesis and the Neo Geo as well. We're going to be able to get RGB directly off of this chip. Conveniently, we actually have 3 solder connections up here. 1, 2, 3, 4 RGB. We don't even have to solder anything directly to the chip. Now, right next to the RGB encoder, we have our signal for composite video right here. And that's on the top leg of this resistor, right underneath where it says IC9. My idea for testing this is to power it up using the power supply that came with my North American Model 1 and tap directly into the PAL composite signal on this pad right here. All right, guys, we're gonna start this repair with some hillbilly engineering over here. So I have a composite lead and I'm just gonna attach this component leg to the center pin of this composite cable. So I'm gonna go ahead and tape that on there. All right, so we have a little something like that. Now let's go ahead and plug this guy in. And on my hacky cable here, I'm just gonna ground it to the board using an alligator clip. All right, guys, let's hit record and turn this guy on and probe the top leg of that resistor. And we're getting an image. It's not a very good image. Oh, that's actually not too bad. Just took a second to adjust. So I've basically just composite modded the system. Now, this composite signal isn't filtered. Usually it would pass through a resistor and a capacitor to smooth the signal out. This is just a bare bones composite signal directly from the board. But nonetheless, that actually tells me that the system's working just fine. So whatever stress the voltage regulator was under as a result of that bad power supply hasn't damaged the system. All right, awesome. I'm really happy that the system's working. I'm sure fixing it would have been fun too, but I'm really eager to start all the mods that I have planned for the system. All the mods that I bought for the system I got from a website based in the UK called Consoles Unleashed. It's run by a guy called Joe, super nice guy, and he helped me pick everything out to mod my systems, and it was really such a pleasure working with him. You can really tell when you're talking to someone that does this sort of work out of passion, and he has a long history with the Master System, and I think he's designed a lot of the mods himself. So let's actually take a look at what I'm about to install in this system right here today. This is known as the passive RGB mod. It's going to replace the onboard RF port with a Genesis Model 2 style DIN connector. That means you can use all your Sega Genesis cables to get both composite and RGB out from the system. One of my favorite things about this mod is that it is a no-cut mod. So unlike all the mods that you see for the Master System where you drill holes into the case and you plug in your RCA connectors, this connector is going to line up perfectly where the RF out used to be. So it's going to look completely stock. Joe's got some really good instructions on his website for installing his mods. I'm just going to be following his steps on how to install his passive RGB mod. So I'll overlay that on the screen when I'm working on each section so that you guys know exactly what I'm doing. All right, boys, I am all set up here and we have the full toolkit out, and the first thing that we need to do is to remove the RF modulator. Let's go ahead and flip this guy over. We have 6 pins here that we need to desolder. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, let's get started. That worked pretty well. Most of the solder is out. Now, these 3 over here aren't actually pins. They're tabs that are twisted over to one side. So I'm gonna go back in with the iron, twist them back so that they can slot out of the through hole. Let's see how ready this guy is to wiggle out. Nice. Last one. Nice. Very clean extraction. To be honest, that actually went a lot better than I thought it was going to. Cool. I have the knife tip installed. I'm just going to go back in with some wick and clean up these pads. Let's clean up and see how it looks. These pads are looking fantastic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right, let's set this guy aside. So the next step here is getting the board ready for the 9-pin DIN. We're supposed to overlay these two boards on top of each other, like that. And the kit comes with 4 of these little posts. He calls them turrets, and there's a pointy side right here on the right and a bit more of a blunt side. So these are meant to be installed pointy side down. We're supposed to get these perfectly lined up, put them in the jaws like this. You don't want to drop these because you don't get any spares. So pointy side down. Let's start with one of the corners. Let's flux this guy up. And let's go ahead and solder this guy in place. It's a little bit crooked. I'm going to line it up a little bit better. All right, not bad. That's actually looking pretty good. You do have an opportunity to line them back up once they're in there. Just go back in with the iron and try and get it so it's perpendicular with the board. I'm going to go ahead and do the remaining 3. Here's our final product. Not too shabby. Now the next step is that we solder this onto the board. So let's get the main board back here. And these should slot right in where the RF box came out. Oh, that's a nice fit. All right, let's flip the board over and solder this guy in place. And there's our end product, 1, 2, 3, 4. Joints are looking really nice. All right, and that's what it looks like on the other side. Sweet. It is now time for the 9-pin DIN. That's the connector right here. So we're gonna go ahead and wet these 3 pads and then slot this guy in and solder it in place. I have the knife tip back on here and I'm gonna go all the way up to 420. All right, let's go ahead and tin these pads. That's looking really, really good. And that's what it looks like up front. We're on the home stretch here. Next we have this breakout board, which he calls the hood PCB. So this is going to slot over the 9-pin DIN, and we are going to solder all the wires to these pads over here. And the board already includes the filtering caps for the composite signal. Okay, let's go ahead and slot this guy in here. Nice. Very nice. All right, let's get the corners of these 2 posts anchored in first. I like the alignment. That looks nice and flat. Let's go ahead and solder everything else in place. everything here is looking really good. All the joints look nice and shiny, and I can't see any bridges. This is the part where we wire all the connections on the motherboard to the breakout board. We have a nice handy diagram here, and I think what I'd like to do is to make all the motherboard connections first and then trim the wires to length and attach them to the breakout board. So let's go ahead and do that. I do have some really high gauge Kynar wire over here, but I think I'm going to use this slightly lower gauge solid core wire for this work. The traces here are pretty big, and the Kynar is pretty expensive. This stuff's like 15 bucks a roll. I'd rather just save it for some of the newer gen consoles where you actually need very thin wire. But I think this stuff right here is going to do the trick just fine. We have 7 pads we need to tin, so let's go ahead and do that. Okay, let's start connecting wires. That all went on relatively smooth. Now let's go ahead and trim these to size and anchor them on. Alright guys, we are done here and everything looks really good. Not too shabby. Let's see what this guy looks like inside the case. That looks amazing, guys. Wow. What a beautiful kit, man. The craftsmanship on this mod kit is amazing. No cutting, no drilling, looks completely stock. It's absolutely beautiful. Time to give this guy its first proper test. Let's get some video capture. I have my Genesis RCA cables here. Plug this guy in. Let's get a controller real quick. Let's hit record. Turn this guy on. And we have a picture that is awesome. That's probably just my capture card adjusting to the PAL signal. It always does that with the European console. We have audio. Awesome. And remember, this system is RF only. So this is the first time we're actually running it off composite video. I won't be able to test RGB right now. I'm actually relatively new to the world of RGB, and my upscaler, I just ordered my first upscaler and it's arriving in the next few days. So we have a lot more work to do on this console, and next time we hook it up, we'll test out the RGB and we'll do the NTSC conversion. Man, this game was like 4 years of my life. Oh man. It's like, you know, level 1 like the back of your hand. Oh. Couldn't do it for the camera. All right. Alright guys, I think I'm actually going to stop here for today's video. I accomplished what I set out to do. We confirmed that the console is working, and we actually RGB modded it, and we now have composite video out as well. So we've dramatically improved this console's video out capabilities. And man, shout out to Joe over on at Consoles Unleashed. I'm way too excited about how well this lines up inside the hole. Man, what a beautiful mod. So next week, we're actually going to be working on a Neo Geo. So definitely stay tuned for that. But the week after that, we'll come back to this guy. I want to swap out that power regulator. I feel like that AC adapter gave it quite a workout. I may or may not recap the unit now. We'll see. But I definitely want to do the NTSC conversion. So I want this to be a stock NTSC system, and I want it to run at 60 Hertz. So Neo Geo next week, and back to the Master System the week after that. So I will see you guys again soon. Take care.